And I'll give you an example of something that happened just last week. One of the teachers sent me a PowerPoint that a 7-year-old girl had made on happiness. And it was her first PowerPoint presentation, and it was about where happiness is and where you can rely on it. And the answer was, it is within yourself. She's 7. At 7, she knows that.
In this video, you'll meet Grace Kidney, who's an owner of the Clanmore Montessori School in Oakville, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear her explain the Montessori approach to socialization and teaching values in young children. You'll hear her talk about her enthusiasm for being so involved in young students' lives. And you'll also hear her talk about her biggest challenge with over 2 decades running the school. Hi, I'm here with Grace Kidney, who's an owner of Clanmore Montessori School in Oakville, Ontario. Hi, Grace, how are you?
Hi, Carly, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. So why don't you start by telling us 3 things you love about your job?
Oh, children. That's easy. You know, I think that a long time ago, when I looked to see what education could possibly be for children, it occurred to me that if I could think in terms of their natural development and meeting the needs of their developmental pieces as they go along, that life is going to be a lot better for everybody. And so meeting the needs of children is massive for me in relation to our school, because that, I believe, is our #1 aim. The children themselves are so extraordinarily full of potential that you can't help but love them and understand the possibility of my job. Just quite splendid.
And so this is a Montessori school in particular. Can you explain what drew you to that frame of education?
So Montessori, Dr. Maria Montessori was a very clever person who lived in Italy, you know, at the beginning of the 20th century, and she was a physician. She was the first female physician to graduate from Rome University, and she was very interested in, you know, the physicality of human beings. She couldn't get a job because she was a woman, and so she took a job looking after children in Rome, and she came to the conclusion, being the great clinical person that she was, that there was a lot to be seen in children, and there were very many patterns to be looked at and dealt with one way or another. And so began an amazing approach to education, quite different than any other approach to children's education in the past. So that really drew me to her, because of my idea that, like, if we could actually deal with children as they developed in a way that met their normal needs, we actually could really address their education, which is the drawing forth from them that which is inside of them to come out and to be. And imagine if we were able to do it for everybody, then the whole human race would be a much better place. So it really was a case of go big or go home. And remember, I was 17 or 18 when I started this, so that jived nicely with my ideals at the time. But imagine how wonderful it has been to continue to now and to understand that she was onto something, that lady. And we have extraordinary advances since the time of her, you know, of her being with children and making her observations. She was extraordinary, quite extraordinary.
And can you describe what's a recent innovation that Clanmore has been able to adopt as part of the overall Montessori program?
I think that, of course, you know, somebody who lived in the beginning of the 20th century and who, you know, had advice for everybody and had data and theory to be drawing from, will inevitably have needed, there will be advances needed. And so consequently, our interpretation of the sorts of things that Dr. Maria Montessori said will be very much, you know, 21st century North American response to the information. And it is absolutely fantastic that at this point, the sort of studies on the brain and so on that are going on dovetail perfectly with her ideas with regard to children's developmental needs, and meeting those needs, you know, is a lot easier for us, because I think we've been doing it for a very long time. I can remember when I first graduated, somebody said to me that there was no such word as sensorial, and I was fascinated because she was a teacher, and sensory motor learning was very much part and parcel of my training, and she thought the word sensorial, I had made it up, and that is the difference between my training way back then and now. So sensory motor learning was very much part and parcel of what I learned to do, you know, in the 70s, and it's absolutely going gangbusters in the conventional systems, what I will call the conventional systems now. So I do believe that we had a bit of a head start on that one.
And can you think of something specific in Clanmore's curriculum that you are particularly proud of adopting or shifting to suit your perspective or your needs or your students' needs from the overall Montessori ideology?
Yeah, it's kind of a science and an art Montessori. It's very interesting because she, of course, was a scientific lady, and yet, you know, the art of a teacher is very definitely, you know, to be observed and appreciated. For us, I think one of the things that we've done is when it came to the elementary children and the middle school children, what we had to do was look very carefully and take ideas that we got in our trainings and think, how can we develop them, and is there anybody who could help us with that? So I'll give you an example of one of the things that we have in our school that would be unusual in a Montessori environment, although endorsed often when I speak with my colleagues from different schools, you know, conferences and so on, is Diane Dawson's idea of restitution, and a way of helping the children to develop their social skills in a way that, you know, makes them very whole and full. I think that was one of the loveliest things that we have in school, that we have a feeling of, if you make a mistake, well, no shame, blame, fault, excuses or apologies, just fix it. And it really does change, you know, the feeling around having made a mistake. And we're all making mistakes all the time. So if you can get a grip of that one when you're very young, it's absolutely marvelous. And I'll give you an example of something that happened just last week. One of the teachers sent me a PowerPoint that a 7-year-old girl had made on happiness. And it was her first PowerPoint presentation, and it was about where happiness is and where you can rely on it. And the answer was, it is within yourself. She's 7. At 7, she knows that. I think it's lovely that she's been in an environment where those sorts of ideas have been floating around. She's been able to take them. Her very good friend showed her how to do PowerPoint, and that's the first PowerPoint presentation that she made. That makes me feel kind of goosebumpy all over, because I think, yes, this is the whole person being, you know, in development.
So the Clanmore Guide to Education is, as you know, you say on your website, developing the whole child. It's a whole education. So there is an academic arm of that and a social arm of that, as you were just explaining. How do you go about ensuring, how rigorous is that social curriculum, and what are some of your techniques in conveying that to your students?
So the academic part of the school is obviously the part that a lot of people come to look for when they come to the school. Like, you know, when do the children know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide? When do they read? And when do they write? And how much do they do? And what sort of academic rigor are you bringing to this? So I think that the Montessori program is a giant, massive thing. And I think what's important to understand is that, in a way, it's a system, and it's got many parts. And into that system, things like the social development can be addressed. We plant seeds, we nurture, we take a lot of time about it. So, for instance, with the children of, you know, 18 months to 6 years of age, we're not doing an awful lot in relation to talking to them about their social development. They're so busy growing and getting to know all the physical things around them that they just deal in absolutes. But when the child turns sort of 6, that's a time for saying, hey, what's going on here? How does this work? How much can I get away with? How much, what is right, what is wrong? Huge question in the minds of children of 6 to 12 years of age, you know. And I think that is when we start. We start with the children about 6 years of age, and we present annually to the children both what we call big lessons, great lessons, and smaller lessons, and then we help the children as they go along. You know, I mean, the thing is that anybody can make a mistake at any point, and you need to be there for them to guide them. And I think it is about guidance and, you know, reflection. And first, we lay out our beliefs. We believe that we're here to learn and to work. We believe that we do this with loving and helping one another. We believe in respect, safety, and so on. So we itemize our beliefs, and then we talk about our psychological needs: belonging, power, freedom, and fun. And so what we want to do is get our belonging, power, freedom, and fun for ourselves individually, and maintain our beliefs at the same time. So if I respect myself, I'm not going to be, you know, trying to get my respect by putting you behind. So there's a lattice work to fall back on. And as I say, it's a complex thing. And we spend a lot of time with the children trying to figure the whole thing out. And generally, the children are actually, they're very receptive to it. It is the time of their lives for thinking this way. And as a result, you know, very beautiful things happen. I'm not saying that everybody's saints, you know, children all over the place will make a mistake. You've got to make a mistake. You must find where the edge is. You must find where the end is. You know, how much stealing is too much stealing? How much stealing is stealing if you don't get caught? These are the things to ask one another. And so that's the stuff we'll find ourselves talking about with the children. And it fits perfectly with the whole, you know, multi-age group classrooms where there will be, you know, those eldest children who will know exactly what the answer is, and the little ones who will be thrilled to learn from them. Do you know what I mean? And the ones in the middle who can be a bit of a pack and, you know, trying to figure out how does this really work. And so it's really splendid. It's eminently suited for what we're doing.
Right. And so there is a very specific mind frame behind how Clanmore is structured the way it is, the way that it goes from preschool to grade 8, the way classrooms are integrated with each other, and curriculums as well.
Yeah.
And in terms of the academic sides, you know, in terms of Montessori, and with especially the preschool years, someone who's not familiar with the program, you know, has a gut reaction or a stereotype that it's playing, and they're not sure what kind of academic rigor is involved in the program. So what would you say to someone who's skeptical of the Montessori program and a school that is specifically designed to teach that way and charge tuition for it?
Received a gift from a graduating year 8 student, and it was he wrote a piece about an experience he had when he was 3 or 4, and it was an experience that he and I had spoken about a little as he grew older in the school. He's now 14, so it's 10 years ago that this happened, and he wrote the most exquisite piece, and he gave that as a gift to me when he left the school. And I thought to myself, what's just happened to me? What have I just experienced when I received that piece? It was very beautifully written. It was polished and fine, and yet it had a little humor in it, and it had like the foibles of that little boy in it, and I went to his teacher at the time, and I said, sit down. She was on my porch. We were 2 meters away from one another. I put on my glasses and I said, listen to this. And she listened to it, and I said, do you realize what you did for him when he was in that situation that he could write this now. And it's not just merely remembering, it's about the choosing to, it's about the perfection of, it's about the polishing. And he was right in the middle of that story, and she was right there, and she had been helping him at the time to pour from one vessel into the other without spilling a drop. If you think about pouring from one vessel into another without spilling a drop, and you think about writing the perfect paragraph, it's about pouring the stuff from one vessel into another without spilling a drop, and making sure it's perfect, and taking such pride in it that you would give it as a gift to somebody. I just thought that was wonderful, and it spoke volumes about where we start with the children and where the children end up. What we offer to the children in terms of the environment and the opportunities that they can, seize for themselves and repeat and do over and over and make it grow and so on. And eventually, there they are. They're writing, they're reading, they're presenting, they're winning. Lovely, very, very lovely. That is that not the education of the whole person? Yeah.
It also speaks to our assumptions of what a child of that age is absorbing. It is, if you think that a preschool age child is just capable of play, then that's all it is. But if you think of them as capable of more than that, then there's more going on at the time.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We would be so foolish to think of children as being empty vessels into which we're going to pour whatever we think is lovely for them to have. No, it's all in there to come out of them, And really, that's a very interesting thing for adults and parents to really to grab a hold of and say, okay, they are who they are,
And what kind of family is typically drawn to Clanmore?
I think the parents of Clanmore are an extraordinary bunch of people. We have had experience recently of drawing upon their power and their strength, during this time of school closure. We had 3 months of school closure. And I will tell you, those parents have been so loving and so supportive of both their children, their school, their children's teachers, and the administration in general. It's just an admirable group, is what I would say. Their feet are on the ground. They were able to laugh when they were talking with us, and they were able to be sympathetic when sympathy was necessary. And they have, like everybody, worked tirelessly for their children all the way along. And of course now it's been a phenomenal time of how do you work at home with the children, help them to do some of the stuff that will really help them to grow intellectually. So I think that very loving, very caring people who are very thoughtful.
And is there a child in your experience that wouldn't be a good fit for Clanmore or wouldn't excel in that kind of environment?
We have children of 18 months to 14 years. We have such a diverse community in terms of, its makeup. There's children of all types in the school. I would say that for the most part, our children are, a collection of everybody, the same collection as everybody has. And for the most part, it works very well. Occasionally, it doesn't work for children with behavioral difficulties because of the large amount of independence that we think that children can take, and perhaps, children with behavioral difficulties cannot take that independence that's offered. So I sometimes think that could be the case. But we look at every individual child very carefully, and we work very closely with parents in the event that our children, a child in our school will, present us with a difficulty that we have to try and figure out for ourselves. So if we can figure out for ourselves, we can help them, succeed. And that's what we will always do.
Right. And can you describe what the life is like at Clanmore. What is the culture that you try to create at the school, and from both a student and parent perspective?
I think it's a very warm environment, and you have to look carefully to understand that it's not merely warm and fuzzy, but actually it is very well prepared. It's highly evolved is what it is. So it's a little, I always think it's a little bit like an English country garden, you know, it's all zone and stuff is blowing in the wind and it all looks like it's landed there. But, you know, behind the wall, there's a fellow with a wheelbarrow walking up and down, and you understand that the way that the flower bed is the way it is because there's been a very, very capable gardener working on the bed. And I think that that's what our school is like, you know, very warm, with a lot of attention paid to children, individually, loving, very loving. People come in and find happy children skipping down the, you know, corridor, doing whatever they're doing, and that's always a great sign. I love when you see a child, you know, skipping and singing at the same time as they're going from one place to another, and that would be very ordinary in our school. So what we'd really like to do is bring children to a place of happiness, so that they can learn, because, you know, a happy child learns well. So I think, yeah, a very happy environment, very highly evolved, actually, very well structured. But we don't saddle the children with the structure. They are feeling that it's just a normal way to be, you know, which I think is, and that really back to the original point is that we're trying to meet the developmental needs of the children, as against impose upon them a curriculum that they may or may not want.
It sounds like a very idyllic image that you're portraying of the school, the English country garden, children skipping and singing down the hallway.
Oh yes, but I did talk about the little one who said how much stealing is too much stealing.
Yes,
Don't forget.
That's right.
It is a community of children, all sorts of community and all sorts of children, and you know they will inevitably push their advantage from time to time. But that's where you discover where the edge is, you know.
Right. So I was going to ask how you handle student conflicts, especially student conflicts with each other. But you did speak a little bit about that, about going back to the social network that is laid out and having that as a safety net to fall back on.
It's really fabulous because you're not starting, if something goes wrong, supposing a child makes a mistake in their social relationships with another child or a group of children, you're never starting from the starting blocks. You're always right out there in the race already. We've got our, you know, beliefs that we can fall upon. We've got our needs and say, man, that went wrong. What on earth happened there? And now it becomes, you know, you're just quietly putting your frontal cortex in place, and now we're thinking, there's a project to figure this one out. Figure how it did happen, and how could we fix it, and what would we do to fix it, and what would be nice, what would work very well, you know, to fix the difficulty. And children take upon themselves, they can be hard on themselves, you know, initially, until they realize that they to make it happen for themselves. And you know, it's sort of interesting. There was a little person who told me a lie. She told me a lie. She did. She told me a lie. And I kind of felt it was a lie, but I wasn't quite sure. And then I discovered it was a lie. And then I felt a little bit funny. And then I wasn't quite sure what to do about it all, because this is a bit of a difficulty, you know. And that little person did not like that she had done that. And she said to her mother, can I get up early in the morning? I've got some money and I'd like to go to the shop early. I would like to pick up something. She wrote me the most beautiful letter, and she brought me in a little can. And she said, you know, that was a stupid thing I did. I wish I hadn't done it. But I want you to know in two ways. I want to give you something beautiful that you will keep remembering, that I know that wasn't quite right, and I want you to have something beautiful. And also, I have written what I wrote so that you would know that I think I probably can do better, and I can do better next time. She put on her alarm clock by herself. She got her mother up early. She went off to the shop, but I just thought it was lovely. And she's 10. She's 10 years old. So when I hear of these things that the children do, I realize this is this is sinking in, and they realize that they can be very beautiful people. And isn't that what we're working with the children for? To help them to find their very best self and to have that one out in front, as much as possible.
Yeah. And as the owner of Clanmore, what has been your biggest challenge in creating the school?
The biggest challenge in creating us. Actually, the biggest challenge is completely physical. Just finding a property, finding a property to be in was a huge challenge. I think that that's a very big thing, but that will be every private school problem, really. The other thing is to continue to remember the possibilities, because the possibilities are enormous. And sort of the drudgery of day by day, into the car, off to school, open the door, can get you a bit down at times. And what you have to keep doing is remembering the possibilities. And I think that, that was one of the wonderful things about Dr. Maria Montessori is, when she was talking about the education of children of 6 to 12 years of age, she wrote a book called To Educate the Human Potential. Like, what educator is writing about those sorts of things? She was massive in thought, but like her, I firmly believe that if I can, like the Royal Bank of Canada, one person at a time, make things a little bit better, the whole world will be better. But it's not about me, it's about the children themselves discovering what they can do. Or I'm just one person, but they are many. So I know that's the thing to keep going, is keep remembering the possibilities, of what we are doing. So exciting.
And is there an area or a program or anything else that you see Clanmore growing into, or adding, or shifting in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see for Clanmore coming up?
Okay. So when we first started our school, we had, over 20 years ago, we had a little group of toddlers, 18 months to 3 years, a little group of children 3 to 6 years of age, and a little group of children 6 to 9 years of age. And we now have children, very many more children than in those days. But a few years ago, we launched our middle school program. And the Montessori middle school program is very much in development at the moment. She wrote one very slim volume on it was a book that gave way to the creation of the middle school program and the high school program. And so it was an enormous thing for us to go into the middle school. So what we needed to do was create a very sound environment for our children at the elementary age in order to be able to get and keep the middle school program going. And the middle school program is absolutely stunning. So it's definitely worth coming for a visit. If you've got a child of the sort of age, and just to look at the sorts of things that they do, absolutely amazing. Very different, quite different than the ordinary, what I would call conventional schools.
Right. Have there been students that have come for specifically the middle school years, or have they typically progressed from preschool through middle school?
The larger majority of children have come straight through Clanmore and all the way up, and then we will have some children who've come from the outside for one reason or another, and embraced the system. It's a wonderful, very liberal, classical education with all sorts of additional pieces that are so terribly well thought out. Quite wonderful. So a mixture.
And is there, once students leave grade 8, once they graduate, is there a typical trajectory for them through high school and beyond that?
I think one of the things about Montessori is we will always be looking at individuals. So I wouldn't, I don't know if there's such thing as a Clanmore child. It's kind of a weird thing to say. But there is the children. Well, what happens when our children leave us? They graduate from us. They're going to a variety of schools. Literally, the larger majority at this point are entering the public schools, high schools in our area. At this point, that's what they're doing. And the reports from students themselves are that they are doing very well. And of course, at this point, we've got students who are coming back, and you know, they're reporting their progress into university or out into the workplace, whatever it is. So it's great fun to hear from them. But generally speaking, the children find themselves, and the students find themselves very well prepared for high school, which is excellent. From our point of view, that's just marvelous, you know.
Okay. And what kind of advice do you have for parents who are currently going through their private school search?
You know, parenting is a massive job. Like, it's, and largely we just roll into it, kind of, sort of, almost by accident. It seems to be one of those jobs that we take on that we didn't even realize we needed to prepare for. We thought we had it within ourselves. But when we become parents, we have a big job to do. And I think the great thing is to try and find for yourself a school who thinks like you. I know school can't think, but you know what I mean. That the philosophy of the school, the science of the school, the systems of the school feel very good to you, and intellectually read the data on the school, and it works for you as a family. I think that, what do you want? What are you looking for? And that's a hard thing, because very often people don't realize they do want something somehow, and it might be that they know that they don't want something, which is great, because then they can say, well, the opposite stuff as they're doing their looking. But to find a school where you can bring your child or send your child on a daily basis, and you can be away doing whatever you're doing, and you don't even worry about the care of your child for a moment, by the way. That's what you're looking for in a school. If you have any doubts, don't sign up. But if you love it, ask all the questions you possibly can. Find out the dirt and get to know what that school is really offering, so that when you settle in with all sorts of energy that's very positive. Because when your child gets happy, of course, you know what it's like for, as a parent, if your child is happy, then you're a lot happier. But also, if the parents are happy, the children are a lot happier. So again, going to those, yes, I would go for the ideal, Carly, every time. The happy child, the happy learner.
And if you were in their shoes, if you were a parent going through this process, is there a red flag or anything in particular specific that a parent might not know without, you know, your industry knowledge? Is there something that you would pay particular attention to in the school search?
I think there are a couple of things about Montessori that you should know. Is, first of all, our assessment of the children is done daily by observation of the teachers, and our presentation to the children of the work that they will do is predicated on that observation and assessment. So we don't assess in the sorts of ways that, you know, standardized achievement tests are done. But of course, we couldn't function without assessment. So our daily assessment of the children is what we would do. That's something everybody should know. And the other thing is that we generally think that if the children come at, you know, early in the morning, work their little hearts out till middle of the afternoon, there's not an awful lot of reason to take work home to do. I mean, take your book home and read it. But otherwise, really, you've spent all the hours you need to on the academic subject. Now go learn to swim. We don't have a swimming pool in school. So yes, sign up for other things that are going to be completely different and take you off, or sign up for something that you absolutely love, that, you know, your school only does a little bit of because they're generalists, you know, at this age.